controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are ASAP Science here to make things make sense.
This is something I've been wanting to make an episode on for a long time. Were you going to say something?
No, I'm just laughing because I'm like, yeah, we talk about this all the time.
Like sleep and cannabis use. And I am hoping to make a larger video on our YouTube channel as well. But I think for me, I've always sort of had this experience that I hear people saying that it's helpful for your sleep. It's better for your sleep. A lot of people use it to help them fall asleep.
Yeah, people rely on it to fall. It's okay. Yeah, I just repeated what you're saying.
But my personal experience is that when I, whether it's an edible or vape or whatever, I feel that I have like the most cozy sleeps in the world. Like when I get into bed, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be the best night of my life. And I wake up feeling like so bad.
Yeah.
Not so bad, but I definitely feel an impact where it feels like, was my sleep actually way worse? And then, even though I got the right amount of hours, because like when I drink, for example, like I'll wake up through the night and have to pee a lot, and I can tell like I'm hungover.
Oh my God, hangovers are real. And you're right. Like there's quite a difference between drinking and waking up.
And a big part of my interest at first was like, using marijuana instead of drinking means I don't feel as bad. That's awesome. And it also means my sleep's not screwed up. But I've been sort of feeling like, wait, I actually am so much more cranky, need so much more caffeine. What is the actual relationship? I want to look into the studies on like both THC and CBD. Are they useful for sleep? What do we actually know?
And it is very controversial because people are trying to say that it's helpful, and it's new research.
Yeah, and there's a huge market. Like our street alone, not our actual street, but right near us, there's like weed shops everywhere. There's so much money going into like the marketing behind what weed can do for you. And some of that's like based out of legitimate science when we talk about like studies on anxiety and depression. But sometimes it goes both ways, right? Like some people who consume a lot of marijuana end up actually being more anxious versus like it's helping for anxiety. So in that exact same vein, it's like, okay, what is the research on sleep? And that's what we're going to focus on today.
So go into some.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought I'd start with the sort of like positives, because this is a little bit of a spoiler alert, but there's a handful of negatives that I found. And I was like, I know a lot of people use cannabis for their sleep. There's a lot of people who have insomnia and are like, marijuana literally like saved me. And there's people who have all sorts of conditions that we won't get into, but it can be really useful. And so I want to be like sensitive to knowing that there are people who use it and find it very important for their life. And I don't want to take that away from anyone. But like in general, studies have found that people who are clinically depressed or who generally have worse sleep to begin with can improve their sleep with cannabis. There's people who are chronic insomniacs that there's been studies on that found like marijuana does help you fall asleep faster.
Interesting.
And that in those studies, they found that it led to like higher daily functioning. So you're like, okay, there is a positive correlation between marijuana and sleep. There's studies on veterans and people with PTSD who have found like it can help with sleep and less waking up through the night. And there's not just positive outcomes on sleep, but it can minimize pain, emotional problems, and really importantly, help decrease opioid use.
Okay, I'm going to have another edible today.
I'm actually surprised. Back in the day, we used to like almost always have an edible before we did the podcast. Remember that? But that was pandemic times.
That was pandemic. It was like throughout all of the pandemic, we would do it on Fridays. Absolutely, as the kids are saying, litty, and we'd sometimes have a drink.
Do kids even say that anymore?
No, I know.
That's very millennial.
Like as like the millennials / maybe even like my Aunt Joanne is saying, litty.
But yeah, we used to like.
I can't believe
that was our most exciting thing because it was the pandemic. It was like we would record on Fridays, and then it would be like so exciting because we'd be like, let's have an Eddie, have some drinks, and by the time the pod's over, we'll like have a party, just the two of us.
The two of us. There was nowhere we ever were legally allowed to be. Yeah. We were locked in.
Whereas like today is a Tuesday. Not that like we wouldn't do it on a Tuesday, but we have other things after this we're wanting to do.
Yeah, and now also even on Fridays when we record, it's like, yeah, we usually can't. We have plans to eat edibles with other people later.
Yeah, or for me, I usually don't like to be high around other people or like in public. So because we actually go see other people now, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna like be sober.
But it means that those Saturday mornings we could have been feeling rough or not. No, we need, because like those are all interesting.
Yeah, and
those are all related to people with conditions.
Exactly. That's what I want to say. The one thing that studies do show for like basically anyone is that something called sleep onset latency. So that's like how fast you fall asleep. It's decreased with THC, which means you actually like fall asleep faster. But
okay, I was gonna be like, that's the way that you made it seem like it was harder to fall asleep, and I was like, I don't relate to that.
No, sorry. Decreased means like the latency. Latency is like how long something takes. It's decreased, so it's shorter.
So you fall asleep quicker with THC in your system.
Yes, and that is why a lot of people
think it helps.
Are like, well, especially if you're insomniac or somebody who has trouble falling asleep.
Yeah,
you will be like, oh, weed is actually making me fall asleep faster. That's a good thing. It's kind of like a sleeping pill, or people do that with alcohol as well. Like you feel unconscious sooner, which is the big caveat.
Marijuana makes me hype. And so if I consume marijuana the way some people do, like right before bed, I can't fall asleep. But if I consume it like hours before and I'm in like the burnt out, it's leaving my system groggy phase, it helps me sleep. Or sorry, my latency is down. Sometimes I'm like, before my head even hits the pedal, I'm out. But not if I've just like...
Yeah, you're like a hype high person. Like,
yeah.
Greg will be like, we're going to do a million things. I'm like, I just want to chill and do nothing. And
well, because the way that THC works in your body is and the reason some people don't like it is that it causes... anxiety and excitement are like physiologically linked, and it does that. So that's why people can get really anxious. But because I think I'm not an anxious person, my body physiologically is acting anxious, which to me I'm reading as excited, and I'm like, and I just like go crazy and want to do, and I could not sleep. Yeah. So, but it helps.
Like you are the. Not that I've never like. There's not anyone else like this, but I've never met anyone else that's become more productive when high than you.
There are people like that.
Who? Well, you don't have to say their names, but like I can't think of one.
Literally, like we always talk about her, Iris, the smartest person
I haven't seen that person in 15 years.
But sorry, I just know there's other people that has that experience.
Yeah,
and some who don't.
I'm just saying, in my experience, it's so interesting because it's not like I become like. I don't want to actually do nothing. In fact, a lot of times I will be like, oh, this is a perfect way to like clean and organize my stuff. And it's certain kinds of tasks. But for me, I like can't do work. I don't really want to like make music because I feel like stimulated in the wrong way. Whereas you're really good at being like, I'm going to paint. I'm going to go do all these tasks at work that I knew I wanted to do but don't have the full motivation. Like it doesn't really give me motivation.
Yeah, like if you ever get an email from me, I'm stoned.
And everyone can tell.
Yeah, they're like, Greg sent his email. It's like all
Yesterday
capitals.
you sent a text after taking the edible like to a group thread and I was actually like, this is not English.
Wait, what?
Yeah, like I could open it now. It was about birding. It was to our birding group friend, like that group.
No, well, okay. I also don't know how to text, and every time I text, I don't know how to spell. So that is like in general me, but yeah, it's probably heightened when I'm stoned for sure.
Anyway, coming back to like marijuana and sleep. So that's like the side effects that are obviously, I mean, maybe for other people like you, if you can't go to sleep in time, that obviously is a negative impact on your sleep.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are lots of people out there who have a similar experience where it kind of like amps them up. And then, yeah, sometimes you'll be like, it's too late for me to have one unless I'm okay staying up till 2 a.m.
Yeah, which I know is very weird.
Yeah. But I would feel that way too. Like, I don't want to like go to bed right after I got
But a lot of people we know do. Like,
Yeah,
it's like
that's
if
true.
we go on like to Airbnbs with friends and stuff, it's like, oh, the night's winding down, and then they go and smoke their joint because they have to sleep.
Yeah. Okay. So are we okay to move into like study zone?
Yeah, that's because all mine are about how it doesn't help.
Do you want to start then, and I can kind of chime in as well?
Well, this one's more about like people who rely on weed to sleep and try and quit.
Rely on weed to sleep and then try and quit weed?
Yeah, and how it impacts your sleep in that sense.
Okay.
So it was a study on heavy marijuana users versus non-users. So if you're a heavy marijuana user, it means you've been using marijuana for over 2 years, 5 times per week.
Oh, whoa. That is heavy.
And I was like, okay, like I'm getting to heavy. I'm not quite heavy, but like some weeks I'm heavy. But yeah, so that's heavy marijuana. And then also only having used for 2 years, I'm like, okay, well, I'm coming up on like 16. But so
That can't be good.
I know, it's like, yeah, it can't be good. They also tested their like urine and their blood because these, whether they were the control group with not marijuana or marijuana users, they would not be people who drank or any other drugs. They would have like
Just
they were
focusing on marijuana
yeah,
and excluding
which I thought
people
was
who-
kind of interesting. I was like, yeah, like,
I think
that's
it's important. You
And
minimize
then-
the variables at least.
Yeah, and I was like, at least these heavy marijuana users aren't drinking. And so then they would get them to stop, and then they studied their sleep through like a bunch of different like tech for like one night,
tracking
second
them.
night, third night.
Okay.
And so the marijuana users had lower total sleep times, less slow wave sleep, and worse sleep onset, so they couldn't fall asleep as quick. And it got worse every single night.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like it was like there was like a bad night and then all of a sudden you're not smoking weed again and then you start to feel better. Like it actually got worse.
Even if they smoked weed again?
No, they're not smoking
Right.
weed.
They're like,
so it's like
cutting them off.
Essentially the point is that
they're being cut off cold turkey?
yeah.
Okay.
The point, and that's only for 3 days.
Yeah.
It's like the point was that it affects your sleep, and therefore when you try to stop, it makes your sleep worse and hard to fall asleep. So I can see how people who rely on it to sleep
Then
are
I
addicted.
really need this.
Yes,
Yeah.
because it is going to not be easy to quit because it's going to make your sleep worse when you try to quit.
Totally. That is like what I basically found for a lot of insomniacs and people who like the problem seems to be also like the at the beginning, like there are some studies that show your sleep can improve in the beginning, especially if you have a sleep condition or like have an issue, but the impact wears out over time. Like any drug, your body kind of becomes used to it, and that there is like literal withdrawal when you stop. And one of the main withdrawal symptoms of cannabis is poor quality sleep. So I can see why
Yeah,
that
okay.
becomes like such a huge challenge for people who are like, I'm doing it to get better sleep. When I stop, objectively and actually statistically, like your sleep is worse.
Yeah.
How do you get out of that hole? It's obviously challenging. Like, oh, Ernie, what are you crying for? Hi. He's like, I want to sleep and you guys are being so annoying. So yeah, I think I don't know what the solution for anyone in that scenario is. It's like any drug withdrawal, right? Like you either have to find a way to slowly minimize. It's like
it's
quitting
hard.
caffeine.
Yeah,
you know what I
I
mean?
know,
Like
it's hard.
everything becomes bad in your life when you're just
Yeah.
like, I'm grumpy. I feel like crap. Everything about this is not good.
I'm never going to quit caffeine. I'm never going to quit weed. Oh God. Okay,
But that's
yeah.
challenging, like when you have to go about your daily life. Because sometimes, for example, like with caffeine, I'm like, I want to minimize. Like I get in busy times when I start doing so much, and I'm like, I want to lower this, and I can if I do it a little bit at a time. But as soon as something is busy in life, I need it again because
Yeah.
otherwise I'm too grouchy or I'm too
Yeah.
like I can only quit it when I'm willing to sacrifice days of feeling crappy.
You're Brokeback Mountain to coffee. I wish I knew how to quit
Yeah.
you. Well, why don't you?
The one study that resonated with me, because a lot of these studies are on people who often have like another condition, like insomnia, which is why they started using it in the first place. But this one study found that high doses of THC at night can lead to unwanted side effects the following day, such as impaired memory and sleepiness. And
Yeah,
I'm just like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
that is my experience. And I've always felt kind of weird about it because I've heard so many people have positive experiences with weed. But I'm always like, I'm so groggy and I feel so tired. And it's both with an edible or just like vaping.
Yeah, the study I read was on mice, and the cannabinoids that they consumed and gave to mice, it affects your ability to perceive time. So that's like what we know. Like sometimes you'll be stoned and you'll be like, this movie's 5 hours, but it's like an hour and a half. Or like you're in the park and you're like having so much fun, you're like, it's only 4. Or opposite. Sometimes you're
Yeah.
like, it's already 7. Like it just like your perception of time's off. So they studied on mice and realized that it's messing with your circadian rhythms. So it's like your brain's impact of being able to tell time if there's THC in your system is off.
It's just like so off,
So
yeah.
therefore it's like that could affect your brain's ability to understand how long it slept, how long to sleep for.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's literally like the marijuana is
just
messing
messing
up
up
your perception of time even while asleep. So
Even
that's obviously
subconsciously.
Yeah, which is like an essential part of the circadian rhythm is time management. Essentially.
Yeah, that is so interesting. I mean, we've always known, obviously, in everyone's anecdotal experiences, that weed slows down time. For me, the most present that becomes is when I'm brushing my teeth. And this is because I do it every day. My toothbrush, like, times it every 30
like
seconds.
when you're high, you're like it's still
Every
going.
30 seconds, my toothbrush goes, and then at 2 minutes, it goes like, it like buzzes a bunch.
Oh, cool.
So you know. And I've
I
have
have
it.
crazy pit stains. It just doesn't rip through my arm, and I could like see from here. It's like, whoa.
I think
Sorry.
your shirts are just like permanently stained.
No,
by that.
I'm disgusting. Continue.
And when I have had weed, like when I'm sober, I almost do it like perfectly. Like by the time I'm getting right to the end of where I would be in a quadrant of my teeth, it finishes. With
when
weed,
you're high.
I think I'm going at the same speed, but I'm always way ahead of it in that, like, I think it's been 2 minutes, but it's actually only been like 1 minute.
No, that's so
maybe like a
funny.
minute and a half. It's not so extreme. And then I've noticed with alcohol, it's the opposite. It's always finishing before I think I'm done. So my perception of time is
so
faster.
a thing.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what alcohol
Like
does.
the night just goes by.
Yeah. And like, because I haven't had to drink, I haven't been able to drink because I'm on a medication for gout. I've gone out partying and been like, and probably also stoned. So there you go. Like the time's already slowing down. I'm like, this is
like the longest night of my life.
Yes, it's like, it is crazy that I'm getting in an Uber at 11:30. I would never do, like, without alcohol. That's an insane thing to do. To leave your house at 11:30, to go across the city, to go to
start your night.
To what? Like hang out and not talk to anyone because it's so loud. And then while you're even there, you're just like, oh my god, another song. Like it's just like, oh my, like, and then you get home at like 2 and you're like, thank God. Then this weekend, like I had some drinks and went out and it was like it felt like 10 minutes. Like it's crazy. Like it wasn't even that much alcohol.
There's like
it
a
was
certain point in the night where it suddenly becomes like, wait, the rest went so fast.
Yeah, and then I'm like, is everyone just drinking alcohol to cope with going out? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's somebody's like, it's obviously supposed to like be fun, but now that I've had this crazy sober, like months and months of soberness, I'm like, I feel like people aren't actually wanting to do this, and like getting drunk is just a way to like pass the time.
Oh my god!
But it really does.
Makes
they're complete opposites in the time distortion.
Yeah, but what is interesting when it comes back to the studies is that they both have a similar impact on one part of your sleep, and that is REM sleep. So like alcohol, THC can block the REM part of your sleep cycle, which is why a lot of people who like use marijuana chronically don't have as many dreams. And then when you stop taking it, you often have crazy dreams.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Matthew Walker, who has that book I loved, like Why We Sleep, and he was saying, but some people will be like, no, but I do still have dreams. I'll have crazy dreams right before I wake up. And he was like, even within one night, it's because you have smoked or ate something earlier, it's the first couple stages of your sleep that like lose out on the REM, and then at the end of the night, your
like
body's trying to catch up. Yeah, and he was like, his perspective is like, you don't ever really catch up, but your body's trying to get more REM sleeping because you've missed it. And so even within one night, it's like you might wake up and be like, I just had so many dreams, and that's near the end of your sleep. But a lot of people do have that experience of like not dreaming anymore.
But I was also like read a meta-analysis that in majority of the studies find that your slow wave sleep is decreased from marijuana. REM sleep is majority decreased, but there always will be studies that exist that say the opposite.
That kind of find. Yeah, I think that's why this is not controversial, but it's like,
you could cherry pick this to go the other way, but majority, like this meta-analysis was from a month and a half ago, and they're like, for every 4 studies that find it THC decreases slow wave sleep, there's one that says it's the same and one that says it's better. So it's like, if you're actually going based on like statistics, the science is saying it's worse for your sleep, but the reason we all probably could, if we wanted to, justify it is because there's like one study from like the 90s that says the opposite. So it's kind of like you could get cherry picked information to make you told that it's better. And CBD also is like weirdly studied in a way where they're like, oh, it kind of helps, but there's like no reason why, and it's a little bit like probably selling you CBD.
Yeah, I have a few studies on CBD I'll get to in a second, but it's hard, like we're coming into an age where there actually finally is more and more research on cannabis and its use in many different places, right? Like on whether teens, and like a lot of research coming out
on
like
young people, it messes you.
Like, don't do it when you're young.
I
know. Even
know.
like when it comes to, like I mentioned, people with depression, people with like something related to their diet, like there's a lot of different ways that we're finally able to look at it because of its legalization and sort of acceptance in many parts of the world. So I think we've yet to determine, and even Matthew Walker, who's like a sleep expert, is like, there's just not enough data. He's like, I would not recommend it as a sleep aid right now.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean like we might not learn more about it in the future. But
But we also like, although the thing about us that's so bad is we're always like, oh man, I'm so tired, the edible. But then we're like, but we also ate like 3 bags of chips.
I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah, like we always are like, is it a salt hangover? Because we truly like
and
get
we're just
the
like
munchies.
literally binge eating. Not like so it is salt, but it's also just like eating 3,000 more calories than I normally do.
And not moving. Like when you and I like have a night, going back to our like what we then speak about being like, because Mitch refuses to be around people.
It's not refused.
It is refused. I'm always like, can we go see a movie? You're like, are you crazy? I just had an edible. I can't leave. I can't even go on a walk. And I'm like,
I just
my
need 4
God.
hours and then I can go on
I
a
know,
walk.
but like we'll talk about this in therapy. I'm like, we have to work on that.
No.
But, no, because and I do think it's like
everyone's different. Leave me alone.
No, I know that you're different, but I'm like, I think that is part of the reason why we could also have a really bad next day because we haven't moved.
Yeah.
We're usually like, it's like, okay, if we both eat an edible,
We're
then it's
like ordering
we're
out,
sitting and we're
eating
watching
chips.
TV for 4 hours, like doing other things that we kind of always laugh. We're like, which is it?
Yeah, I've been meaning to do some tests of my own to just be like,
You did,
okay,
I thought once.
I did, and I did feel a bit better, but the challenge is I do not have the willpower once. Like I always think like, I'm not going to eat that bad. I'm going to try tonight. I'm going to have an edible or whatever, and I'm going to like eat really healthy.
You need to like
I can't.
cut up a pineapple and like have everything before done.
Like set and
Yes,
ready. That's
yeah.
true. I
Because you
I've
can't
kinda
rely
been-
on yourself.
But even then, it's like I overeat. It's really hard. I'll be like eating healthy, and
True,
then I'm
true.
like an hour later,
You
I'm
eat like
I need
14
another
pineapples.
Meal. Yeah.
It's like so much
Which,
sugar.
as much as healthy food is obviously good for you, like large quantities are going to make your body have to digest differently. And you're going to bed with food in your stomach, and like that's exactly true. That of course there's other factors for me personally, and I'm sure many other people. Like alcohol, it's not alcohol is bad for
But then
your
it's
sleep,
what you drink
but
at night.
Yeah, you're like
eat at night.
Are you dehydrated? Are you eating like crap? Are you going to bed at 3 a.m.? Like even when I'm on an edible, it's like I'm staying up. It's the weekend. I'm going to bed at the wrong time. Like I've been feeling super tired recently, and we're gonna do another episode on this because Zelda came out, and it's not like I've been high necessarily, but I've been staying up late.
Yeah,
and I'm like my sleep schedule is messed.
Yeah.
Even just that alone is enough at this age to really disturb me.
Yeah, so marijuana can mess with your sleep schedule because it can be involved with like maybe a night when you're with friends, staying out later, and all this stuff, and it's hard to tell.
So, talking though now, like, because for me, I don't consider myself, and I don't know, like, if you consider yourself like a chronic marijuana user. I guess
think
like yeah,
I am.
and like I guess in one
Like-
I am because it's like over long periods of time. It's not like I do it once in a blue moon. It's like I do it once a week.
It's when you
maybe.
talk to like certain people that I'm like, oh my God, like I'm such a pothead. Because
But there are people we know who do it every day.
I know, but then that's what I mean.
Well, you do it
Those
more
are
than
the
I do.
people who make you think that you're fine. But then it's like a majority of the people are not doing it every day.
So now talking about people who use it chronically, and by these studies' definitions, that's 20 days in the last month.
Okay, let me see.
Are you counting now? Like, so for sure, I don't come anywhere near that. I'm like 3 or 4 days.
Self-righteous king.
I basically have so much self-control.
Wait,
No.
you've only done it 3 or 4 days in the last 30 days?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but I also had like a
Wow.
back injury and something else
What does
happened.
that mean? That you would or you
I
wouldn't?
wouldn't do it for me, I was like, I don't want to do it when I'm like injured.
I guess, yeah. Like, I guess I actually have probably in the last 30 days done it like 8 to 10 times.
Right. So like still a lot, but not 20.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at. Okay. So of this group that was tested,
God is watching
who
and knows we're
qualified.
both lying. Continue.
So 64% were more likely to sleep less than 6 hours a night, and 76% were likely to sleep longer than 9 hours. This is important because studies over time have found like there's this sort of Goldilocks zone of 7 to 9 hours. And when humans fall outside of this, there's an increased risk for heart attack and strokes, diabetes, coronary artery disease, and other cardiovascular problems.
When you sleep more, because I'm in that camp these days.
More than 9 hours. Again, these are just like statistics,
Okay.
and they may or may not be skewed by sometimes people who have actual conditions, right? So if you have a disease, you might actually be sleeping more or less. But in general,
What if my disease is absolutely...
do you think you sleep more than 9 hours?
in my insane white privilege, on privilege, I don't set alarms anymore.
Yeah, but But how much time are you sleeping?
I'm sleeping for like 9.5 hours.
Wow. Oh, you're so lucky. I wish.
Well, I mean, I every morning I'm like, okay, I wonder what time it is, and it's always 9:30, and I always go to bed at midnight.
Oh wow, no, that's good. But it's because I was gonna say maybe you're catching up on like sleep deprivation, but in studies on sleep, they often find once people are given like a few weeks to recover, they'll end up between the 7 to 9 hours.
Okay.
So maybe, and also it may depend how long it takes you to fall asleep. Like you might be
I
going.
also have white noise on, earplugs in, eye mask on. Like I
think if you're sleeping that long, it's probably a good thing. And you're a very active person during the day.
This is what I'm saying. I'm like, oh, it's just because I played tennis for 3 hours.
You're right. Well, no, it's good. Sleep is so important, especially if you are working out. I think I wouldn't worry too much about it because you're a very active person and very healthy. Because the problem is like being stagnant. Like
I'm also just embarrassed that I said my like insane privileged schedule where like I go to bed at midnight and get up at 9:30.
I don't think, honestly, like a little side note, that anyone should be ashamed for the amount of sleep that they aim to get, because I think we know more and more sleep is so important, and like yes, it's a privilege like to be able to sleep. But I saw a meme that was like, oh, I've tried everything. Like I'll never get 9 hours or 8 hours of sleep. And then it's like, what about going to bed earlier? And it's like, no.
Yeah.
Like, right. Like obviously there are people who don't actually have that privilege, but a lot of people could go to bed at 8 p.m. if they really had to.
Yeah.
And build that schedule. It's a lot harder to start going to bed earlier.
We also are in the like people having kids era. So I think that's where I feel more guilt, because I'm like,
yeah,
so many of my girlfriends are like in an
luxury.
absolute like insane sleep deprivation where it's like, when like they talk about what they did that day, they're like, what'd you do? I'm like, oh no, I got up at a decent hour. Like it's like, because one thing that I had nothing to do with the weed thing, but that I was reading about yesterday was just health at different ages, and how 30s is like when a lot of people have kids. And so it's a time when a lot of the metrics of health are based around like these insane times of losing sleep. But that like people cope, like adults cope, but like you can't expect your health to be based around good night's sleep when you're a parent.
Totally.
And then the one thing it said, imagine this, the one thing it said was to eat marijuana. It's like, no. Was that as parents you try to do like shifts, so like one night where the one parent, like if you're lucky enough to have a 2-parent household, takes responsibility so that the other can try and get 7 full
like
hours.
a full
yeah, they were like, that was their suggestion, was like 1 on 1 off.
Better to like get a full night than to always have a broken night sharing.
Yeah, and then it kind of meant like sleeping in a different place. So it's like the person who was like on the night off would sleep somewhere else, and then knowing that the next night you would do it for the other person.
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually interesting.
Yeah, because like a big part of sleep is you're wanting consistency through the night. And that is like, even going back to marijuana, people who have used weed within the last week in studies are more likely to have a hard time staying asleep. So like broken sleep, which alcohol does as well, and that's sometimes because you have to pee or whatever, but those like waking ups that are like interrupting your sleep cycle are not good for you. Even why they recommend not to drink too much fluid before bed, because just like waking up in the middle of the night is not great.
You're gonna actually think I'm so insane for what I'm about to say.
What?
But it was so hot last night. And
like temperature
in the loft where we are. We're in our work loft right now, that I left the door open and went to bed. Wide open.
You did not.
I did.
There's a window up there you can open.
I know. And then I woke up to go pee and looked down and was like, oh my God, the window is wide. The door is wide open, and came and shut it. And I remember just like thinking about how like I'm such a weird person because it didn't faze me at all. And I went right back to bed, and how like a lot of people...
You didn't close it?
No, I did close it, but like
but
it didn't like even spook me. I was like, oh, okay, sweet. That's nice. I got drafted until this moment. And I was like, people I know would be like, you're so
wild,
shocked, and
literally
scared
like
that they wouldn't be able to sleep.
1 week ago, there was a raccoon with distemper outside of our door. Remember?
Okay,
like
Mitch, what you think you think my biggest concern is a raccoon coming in and biting my toe,
or just like being in here? How are you gonna get it out? That's one of the concerns. Like the other is obviously being robbed or somebody coming in that's not welcome. But I'm just saying, like wild animals don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't know if that's weird. I leave that door open all the time. Like yesterday, me and Brian are going to start our podcast up again, and we're going to do Jason Derulo. I was blasting Jason Derulo with the door open cooking, and I was like, anyone walking by is like, well, that guy has fucked. Yeah, like that guy certainly hasn't slept in a while.
I have another study that was on 14,000 students, which I thought was interesting. I'm getting near the end of my stuff. Don't worry. So insomnia was significantly higher by 45% in cannabis users compared to non-users. So in this sense, like, while we can't say it's causal, people who are using more weed have higher rates of insomnia. That may be like they might start using weed because they also were insomniacs. So it's hard to know.
And this is students, because the other
students,
study I
yeah.
had was on young people. It negatively affects their sleep and their grogginess, like,
yeah,
for sure.
And this same study found that, like, as your use increased, so the more you use, the higher that became. So up to 2 times higher to have insomnia than people who didn't use weed or rarely did.
Wow.
So it seems linked to how much you're using. And the only thing I kind of want to talk about was CBD, because there's a lot of marketing out there to promote CBD. Like, in case you don't know, CBD is sort of like the non-psychoactive part of cannabis.
Yeah.
So it can be like isolated, and people promote it for like anti-anxiety or relaxing.
For your dogs.
Yeah, people give it to their dogs and stuff. And there is research on that. That's like, not the dogs necessarily, but on people. Like, there's a lot of effort and millions, if not billions of dollars going into like researching and promoting CBD as a medicine.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to scroll to my stuff. So basically, it is much more promising than THC. Like, at low doses, they say CBD can be wake promoting, but at high doses, it seems to increase sleepiness. One of the things that they think, again, all of this is like very early in that it's like, don't take major conclusions from this.
Yeah.
But one of the hypotheses is that it seems to be hypothermic, which means that it makes your body colder, which is something you do when you're trying to sleep, right? Why baths are great, because your body, once you're out of the bath, is trying to get rid of all the heat and lower its body temperature. When you go to sleep, your body temperature drops. So that's one part. And the anti-anxiety part seems to be legit in that it quiets down your amygdala. So for people who do suffer from anxious thoughts or overthinking, especially right before bed, might be a useful thing to like fall asleep.
Yeah.
Again, this is like somebody with anxiety has potentially a condition. And so it's different than just like your average person taking it. But I thought that was interesting. And then they also think it might impact adenosine. So that is what, when you drink caffeine, it's binding to your adenosine receptors and blocking this sort of like adenosine, which makes you sleepy. They think it modulates the sensitivity. So it's like the weight of adenosine is heavier, so there's stronger pressure for your sleep. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But again, this was all from like Dr. Walker, and he was like, it's so early, he would not prescribe this.
Yeah, and it feels like it's over.
Yeah, there's a lot of
by
money
CBD
to
companies.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's kind of all I have. Like, again, I think I need to do more personal experiments to really see that like I do eat like crap, because it's fun to like get a yummy meal and chips when you're like.
But it is
having
also
a
a
night in.
majority of the recent research says that it does negatively impact sleep.
Yeah, in conclusion, it's probably not, unless you have another more serious condition,
Something
probably
that's
going to hurt you in the long run.
And then you might be dependent on it.
Yeah.
You're getting worse sleep. And then when you try and stop, it might be
Even worse
hard
sleep.
and
Yeah.
it will take time. And I have a video about quitting marijuana that it does take a long time before your sleep actually improves. So it's not helping.
Yeah, and I think it's like, not to just use research to justify my own experience, but it's nice to at least know it, because I've always sort of been like, oh, but I feel so crap after. It's good to just be like, okay, it is impacting your sleep.
Yeah.
And outside of THC and CBD, like, there are lots of other chemicals in whether you're smoking or eating that are not super studied. And so it's like they may also be playing a role in sleep and the impact on like the different sleep stages. So ultimately, if you're trying to get a good sleep, it's probably best that you're not using it as a crutch, even though it makes you feel like, even for me, like so cozy and good
it
when I'm
might
going
make you
to
fall
bed.
asleep faster.
Yeah, but ultimately not great for your sleep.
Okay, are we gonna do an episode on Zelda?
Oh, I'd love to.
Like
I was
video
kind of
games
thinking
and like how?
we'll think about it. Maybe give us ideas, because it's so good. Even if you don't like Zelda, like, it's just so fascinating.
Yeah, it sounds
It's-
so cool.
But I'm still so early on, and I want to give enough time that I won't be giving too many spoilers to anyone. But I'm a really slow player, so I'm not very far. So I kind of want more time before I can give it like my review. But maybe we can put it in the context of like video games.
Yeah,
like an
okay,
episode
cool.
on video games.
Okay, thanks for
All right,
listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week. See ya.
Post.